Dr. Marcus Webb had expected many things when he accepted the position as Earth's first xenohistorian to the Galactic Educational Consortium. Tedious bureaucracy, cultural misunderstandings, perhaps even academic rivalries with alien scholars who had studied warfare for millennia. He had not expected to be put on trial. The consortium's grand amphitheater stretched before him like a vast coliseum, its crystalline walls alive with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with the emotional states of the assembled beings. 12 species sat in judgment, their various forms of attention focused on the lone human standing at the center of the chamber. Dr. Webb, intoned Chancellor Yilthara, her ethereal voice carrying the weight of 7 centuries of academic authority. You stand accused of disseminating dangerous historical propaganda to impressionable students across 17 worlds. Webb adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit that had followed him from lecture halls on Earth to this alien court of inquiry. I taught exactly what was requested of me, Chancellor, a comprehensive overview of human military history. The accusation had originated from Professor Kethavol of Rigel 7th, whose students had reportedly suffered psychological distress after Webb's lectures on Earth's conflicts. The consortium had initially dismissed the complaint until similar reports flooded in from institutions across known space. The concern, rasped tribunal leader Hexnall through his breathing apparatus, is that your accounts of human warfare contain what our psychological analysts have termed impossible escalation parameters. Our students believe you are teaching fiction. Fiction? Webb felt a familiar academic irritation rising. Every event I described is documented historical fact. Dr. Webb, Chancellor Yilthara's tone carried a note of practiced patience. You described to a class of young Zenthari a conflict where humans deployed explosive devices capable of destroying entire cities. You told Crystalline Communion students that humans once fought a war that killed over 70 million beings. These numbers exceed the total casualties from all recorded galactic conflicts combined. Webb looked around the chamber, noting the way various species reacted to even the mention of such figures. The Zenthari representative's scales had shifted to deep purple, a sign of distress. The commune's crystal formations flickered erratically. You want proof, he said quietly. We want truth, Chancellor Yilthara replied. The consortium's mandate is education, not the spread of fear-inducing mythology. Webb nodded slowly and activated his personal holoprojector. The chamber filled with soft blue light as Earth's image materialized above the assembly. This is my homeworld, he began, zooming the display to focus on a cluster of islands in the Western Pacific. The year was 1945 by our calendar. Humanity was engaged in what we call the Second World War. The projection shifted, showing archived footage of massive naval fleets, endless columns of soldiers, and industrial complexes working at maximum capacity. The war had lasted 6 years. 60 million humans were already dead. Webb's voice carried across the silent chamber. The Japanese Empire, fighting for their homeland, had demonstrated they would rather die than surrender. Invasion estimates suggested another 1 million casualties among our forces alone. Chancellor Yilthara's luminescent patterns had stilled completely. Dr. Webb, surely you're not going to. You demanded proof of human warfare capabilities, Webb interrupted, his voice hardening. You accused me of teaching fiction. You want to understand why your students are disturbed? The hologram shifted to show a single aircraft flying through pristine morning skies above a coastal city. August 6th, 1945. Hiroshima, Japan. Population, 346,000. Webb's finger hovered over his control pad. Around the chamber, representatives from species that had never known anything more destructive than planetary siege weapons watched with growing unease. This is what humans do when we decide a war must end. He pressed the control. The holographic display erupted in silent, terrible light. The mushroom cloud rose like a monument to humanity's capacity for destruction, expanding outward in perfect, deadly symmetry. When the light faded, the city was gone. The chamber remained absolutely silent for 17 seconds. Webb counted, his academic mind seeking refuge in data, as it always did when confronting humanity's darker achievements. Tribunal leader Hexnull was the first to speak, his breathing apparatus cycling rapidly. How many died? Immediately? Around 80,000. By the end of the year, including radiation effects, approximately 146,000. Webb's voice remained steady, professional. 3 days later, we did it again. Nagasaki. Another 80,000 dead in seconds. The Zenthari representatives' scales had gone completely white. A color Webb had learned indicated complete psychological shutdown. 2 other species had activated their emergency life support systems. This weapon, Chancellor Ylthara whispered, was this your most powerful? Webb almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. This was 1945, Chancellor. We've had 80 years to improve our efficiency. He gestured, and the display shifted to show a series of increasingly massive explosions, hydrogen bombs, multiple warhead systems, weapons that could sterilize continents. We built approximately 70,000 nuclear weapons during our Cold War period, enough explosive power to destroy our planet's surface several times over, and we pointed them at each other for 50 years. But surely, the commune representative chimed desperately, surely you never. We used them in warfare exactly twice, Webb confirmed, both times to end a conflict decisively. Japan surrendered 6 days after Nagasaki. The chamber erupted, in a chaos of alien voices, translation matrices struggling to keep pace with the pandemonium. Some representatives were calling for immediate quarantine of human space. Others demanded Webb's arrest for psychological warfare against the student body. Chancellor Ylthara raised her hand for silence, and gradually the tumult subsided. Dr. Webb, she said slowly, your species deliberately created weapons capable of destroying worlds, and then chose not to use them. We chose to aim them at each other instead, Webb replied matter-of-factly. The doctrine was called mutually assured destruction. The threat of total annihilation kept the peace for decades. And now? Hexnull asked quietly. Webb deactivated his projector, returning the chamber to its normal lighting. Now we aim them at the stars, Chancellor, at threats that might emerge from the void between galaxies, at enemies we haven't met yet but know we eventually will. He picked up his data pad and prepared to leave. You asked me to explain human warfare to your students. I showed them our restraint. Restraint? The word came from several species simultaneously. Webb paused at the chamber's exit and looked back at the assembled representatives, beings from civilizations that had spent millennia avoiding conflict, that had never faced existential threats requiring ultimate solutions. We've never used our strongest weapons on an enemy that couldn't fight back, he said quietly. Every time we've ended a war quickly, we've done so to save lives, ours and theirs. We learned to split atoms and chose to bind them back together. We built machines of ultimate destruction and used them as tools of peace. The chamber remained silent as he walked out, leaving behind representatives who would spend the next several hours in emergency session, trying to understand a species that could create hell and choose not to unleash it. 3 days later, the consortium amended Webb's teaching mandate. His new course title read, Human Warfare, a Study in Calculated Restraint. Enrollment was the highest in the institution's history,